Hello, everyone, and welcome to Off the Tangent podcast with me, Zak Bream. My guest today is joining me from Aarhus in Denmark, where she is a university student. We are going to look at her experiences being born deaf, as well as my own experiences, because many of you might not know that I'm actually almost fully deaf in this ear. So we're going to talk about sort of the challenges that are involved with that, and sort of, her growing up in that deaf culture, which I was sort of learning about, that there's sort of a culture around that, and it makes up a lot of your identity. So yeah, please enjoy today's episode with Sarah Wivel. Thank you.
Yes, so actually I'm born deaf, and so technically I'm still deaf. And so I have cochlear implants, and I got them when I was 1.5 years old. That was the first surgery, and the second one was when I was 4 years old. Um and yeah, so I use them to hear today, and yeah. So yeah, when I take them off, I can't hear anything at all. Then it's just, I mean, it's not complete silence, but it's pretty much silent.
So
Yeah.
I remember you sort of telling me that was it a virus that you got when you were young, or your mum got a virus? Like what caused it?
Yeah, so my mom, she was pregnant with me, and while she was pregnant, she got infected with cytomegalovirus. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. But it's for short it's CMV. And yeah, so it's a type of virus that can just give you the common flu if you're not pregnant, but if you're pregnant, then it can actually like really do a lot of damage to the child. And I mean, it can cause internal like organ failure, and like you can become disabled in a lot of ways. Whereas I was kind of spared, and it only affected my hearing as far as I know. But yeah, that is what caused my hearing loss. I think a lot of people with cytomegalovirus from birth or whatever, they also have hearing loss. So I think it's a pretty common side effect, but I'm not sure. I think you might be able to like not have hearing loss from it, but I don't know. I think it's, yeah, 90% of children who are deaf are born to hearing parents, actually. So a lot of cases it is cases like that where it's like disease, or sometimes it might even be genetic factors that the parents are, you know, that they inherited from the parents, but none of the parents actually have the dominant genes to for deafness. But yeah.
So the one thing that I was like curious about, so I think maybe a lot of people don't really understand like what's going on in the ear, but effectively you have a spiral, and then you have hairs in that spiral, and you have a whole spectrum of sound, like a whole frequency spectrum, from the high frequencies to the low frequencies. So like low frequencies might be like the bassy sort of drums, and then
Yes.
higher frequencies is like this like screeching sort of sound. So then the different parts of your ear along the hairs are sort of, the hairs will vibrate when it hears that sound, and then
Yes.
that's sort of what picks up human sound. So you said you could hear a little bit. Does that mean that you have maybe a few hairs, or how would it work?
Um, so I'm not sure. Okay, so I got a hearing test made, and it's a bit uncertain whether I can hear anything, but it is, I feel like I can hear a tiny bit. A
Yeah.
teeny tiny bit. But that could be that there are still a few of these hair cells that are like still standing and working. But whereas the rest of them inside of the cochlea would be broken or just not working. But yeah, so that's how it works. And you're right, they do pick up different frequencies according to where they are in the cochlea. I'm pretty sure in the beginning of the cochlea it is the higher frequencies, and in the like the deeper inside the cochlea it's the deeper sounds. or the
the
yeah,
lower frequency sound.
yes, the lower frequencies. Yeah, exactly. So,
So
yeah.
with you, you were mostly born deaf, and then I think what I was so blown away from our conversation is now that you can hear so well, and I'd never heard of the procedure you'd had before and the sort of technology there. So can you sort of talk us through the technology you got, and I don't know what age did you sort of get your implant and everything, and when did it first like all start happening with all that stuff?
So cochlear implants were invented, I think, around the 80s, and they by this Australian man. I don't remember his name, but this guy, he invented the cochlear implant by actually taking his like a seashell. I don't think that's what it's called, but you know those like it's a seashell with
Like
like
a
it's a
spiral?
spiral.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what it's called.
I
I
don't know.
know the
I
name,
don't know.
it's not in English. Anyway, he looked at this and then he took a straw. He was at the beach, and then he took this like not straw, but you know like these that's what I've heard at least, so I could be wrong. But it's like he took a piece of grass and then
Mm.
he put it inside this cochlea. I don't know what it's called.
I think a seashell. I understand what
Yes.
you're trying to say. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then he got the idea to do the same inside the inner ear. And then he invented this thing, this technology, so
Mm.
that I actually got this um surgery where they implanted an electrode inside the inner ear, where so it's like they have it's a little bit different from cochlear implant to cochlear implant brand, but the one I have has 22 electrode points inside the cochlea, and then they sort of stimulate my cochlea electronically instead of through vibrations, which is the normal way, or yeah, the normal way of hearing. Um, so yeah, that's how it all came about, and
So normally you'd have the hair cells,
yes,
the hairs in your ear, and they would vibrate, and then that
exactly,
vibration would be changed to like an electrical impulse that would be
exactly,
sent to your brain, and your brain would interpret that sound. So then what you're saying with the electrodes, because you don't have the hair cells, they would put 22 electrodes in, which can stimulate that electronic pulse that sends to your brain.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So a normal hearing ear gets the vibration from the sound, and that makes the hair follicles, or not hair follicles. I don't know what. Yeah, hair cells
Hmm.
makes them hair follicles. That's not the word. No. The hair cells move, but yes. So it stimulates it electronically, and it's this sort of it's the same because nerves are electrical signals.
Hmm.
So it's actually the same process. It just bypasses the entire outer and inner or middle ear. So there's nothing, I mean, I could technically cut off my ears and it wouldn't make a difference as
So
long as
is it
this
you have the hearing aid, and then is the hearing aid is what picks up the sound, and then it converts
yes,
it to those 22 points?
exactly. So maybe I can show you what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, my hair's up right now. So I don't know if you can see. Can you see can you see my
Yeah,
ear?
yeah. I see that. I see that.
Okay, so there's a magnet here. Okay, let me just take it out of my hair. There's a magnet here, and when I take this out, now I can't hear on this ear. I can
Mm.
still hear on my other ear, so don't worry, I'm not completely deaf. But so this is how it looks. Mine is brown, you can get it in different colors.
Mm.
But yeah, so this is the battery, and this is the magnet. And here there are microphones. I don't know if you can see these two
Yeah.
like black spots,
Mm.
and they are the microphones. They pick up the sound, and then they come in through this wire, through this coil, and then they've surgically implanted a magnet here. Um, and from there the coil goes, or yeah, there's a electrode, electric, I don't know, a wire, something that's been implanted into my ear. So yeah, so
And
that's how.
the
Yeah.
implant in your inside your ear. So all right, the magnet that's being attached there, is that where the implant is, where the magnet's going?
Well, technically, I mean, you can just, it doesn't matter if it's, it, this is the connection between, so if this is not touching the
Mm.
head, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think my
That's
confusion
the
is because
connection.
I think when you look at the ear visibly, the hole
Yeah,
is here, right? Whereas the
yeah,
magnet's quite far back. So
yeah. Oh, okay, no. So I think I know what you're asking me. So actually, no. So it's where the microphones are. So technically, I hear from here and not from here. I don't know if that makes
okay,
any sense.
okay, okay.
You can get, there's a model called Conso, which is basically only up here. I've tried it. I didn't really like it because I could hear my hair. Like, yeah. And I can't really hear that here, and I'm just used to having something on my ear. But yeah, so it's from the microphones. That's where I hear from.
Okay. And does
And
this
then it,
mean that anyone now who's born deaf, uh, can they almost hear with the implant?
well, it depends on a lot of factors actually. Um, I can't say that, I mean, anyone could get a good result with the cochlear implants. It's kind of hard to say because it depends on how the surgery goes. It depends on how much scar tissue you have inside of your cochlea, how much, like, how well the implant goes in. It depends on cognitive abilities. It depends on a lot of things, actually. So, but it technically is possible. There is one thing though, and that is that the sound that I hear is not at all comparable to normal hearing because it's much, as you said, the frequencies that I hear are much less because I have 22 sort of points
Mm.
that is compiled into something that my brain makes sense of. Whereas the normal hearing ear can hear, I think it's, I mean, it has 16,000 hair cells. So if I'm not mistaken, that would be 16,000 different frequencies in
Mm.
a spectrum. Whereas I can hear 22 points in that spectrum. Um, so
Does
I
it?
think,
Uh,
yeah,
it's so like you say. Is it more like when you talk about it wouldn't sound normal to maybe what I hear? Is
yeah.
that would you know what it sounded like for me, or is it kind of guessing for you what you imagined it would sound like?
I would imagine it would sound very robotic. People who get the cochlear implant surgery, they immediately, like when they get it and they get it activated, they say that it sounds very robotic or that it sounds like Donald Duck or like everything is like really weird and they have a hard time distinguishing between sounds and distinguishing between female and male voices. But you get used to it, and actually, the rest of the work sort of is actually your brain getting used to it. And that's neural plasticity. And
Mm.
that's so insane. Like the fact that your brain can actually get used to it and make it sound normal. Because to me, everything sounds normal. I
Mm.
mean, it doesn't sound weird to me, but I'm sure if, like, I'm sure if I'd had hearing my whole life and I became deaf like that and I had to get cochlear implants, then everything would, it would be a huge shift. Um, but it is possible. A lot of adults who become deaf for one reason or the other, they get cochlear implants and it's successful.
Mm.
But it also depends, the success rate of cochlear implant surgery depends a lot on how early you get it. So I was lucky that I got it when I was 1.5 years old. That's pretty early, but because that's within the sort of language window. I'm pretty sure you have like this window in your childhood from 0 to 7 years old where you are able to learn. languages, and if you don't get input through like auditory input in that window, then it's really, really difficult to learn how to hear after the age of 7 if you've never heard anything before.
Because
Um,
your brain, it's almost like it's never learned to, it's never been stimulated by sounds, so it doesn't even
exactly.
try and pick them up or understand those signals.
No, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because then your brain is just, I mean, it's used to interpreting other signals, like visual signals. You can learn maybe how to hear, like, I don't know, cars coming by, or if you're older than 7. So you can use cochlear implants, but it's not necessarily like you'll be able to like understand speech. So it depends on a lot of things. But if you got cochlear implants today, I think you would be able to use it, for example, because you have had hearing.
Yeah, yeah, because I think so. Like my hearing situation is to like sort of explain it to people is, you
Mm.
know, up to the age of 13, I had completely perfect hearing, and then I went to a near in London. There's an airport called Biggin Hill, and they used to do a thing every year called Biggin Hill Air Show, where thousands of people would go, and there'd be like jets flying over, and we have these things called the Red Arrows, which is a group of like 10 red planes. Have smoke coming out the back of them with different colors, and they do like, acrobat sort of stuff. So I went to that
Wow.
with my family, and and loads of people were wearing like ear protectors and everything, but a lot of people weren't. And my mom was like, "Oh, wear them, wear them," but I was like, "Oh, I'm 13." Thought I was too cool for them, so I I didn't wear them. And you know, so what happened was the plane went by so loudly that the sound sort of hit my ear at such an angle that it hit like resonant frequency, and
Oh,
that resonant frequency, like it had a massive like spike in amplitude, and it damaged my ear. So what was strange about this was like, it really it weakened it at the first, and then it kind of came back, and then 3 days later I was just walking in the park, and all of a sudden like my hearing completely went, and it just disappeared. And they still couldn't figure out why it took like a 3 day delay for
that
the
is really
audio.
weird.
I don't understand it. I think,
Yeah.
I think it's probably something to do with the fact that even though the hair cells had somehow stopped working, the brain was compensating or something for the
Maybe.
loss of stimulus, and it was fixing
Yeah.
it, like filling out the gaps of. I don't know. The doctors couldn't figure out why there was a delay there.
Weird.
But I think a lot of people might not necessarily know what like resonant frequency is, but resonant frequency is every single object you have in your home and in the world and the universe has a resonant frequency. And what that means is if I take this cup, for example, and
Mm.
you ping it and it might make a sound, or if I sing and I don't know if you've ever seen those opera singers that they can sing and make the
Yes.
grass crack. And the reason why that is as they're singing, they're moving through the frequencies of sound, and as soon as the sound that's coming out of their voice hits a resonant frequency, a glass, it like it almost like I don't know how to describe it. It almost like so much force from the sound at that resonant frequency causes it to crack. So in
Oh,
my
crazy.
eardrum, when you hit that resonant frequency, there was so much force going on that it just damaged it. I was very unlucky, but I think so. I lost the hearing. So now, when it first happened, I probably had about 20% hearing in my left ear, and then over the years it slowly got better, and I want to say it's at like 40% now, but it's still quite muffled. So I think when
Yeah.
me and you first started talking about this, I think it was interesting because I think obviously yours is very different to mine, but I could relate
Yeah.
to a lot of the issues and things,
Yeah.
because I think people think that if you have hearing aids, then or if you can hear, then it's fine. But actually, there's a lot of difficulties that comes from
Yes.
having difficulties with hearing. So, for example, for me, even though I can hear perfectly in my right ear and maybe 40-50% in my left ear, when I'm in a sports hall or a busy place, or
Mhm.
for some reason, when there's so many sounds, I can't pick up on what people are saying. Like the ambient sounds sort of take over, and it's hard for me to like pick out
Yes.
the other people's voices. Do you find that similar for yourself as well?
Definitely. Definitely. Yes. It's really exhausting. Like you
Mm.
use a lot of mental energy to sort of pick apart what people are saying. and then it's like it's almost too much. Like then the joke has been said and people have laughed, and it's like, oh, like like it's like it yeah, it's very actually kind of socially debilitating in
Yeah,
some settings. Yeah.
100%. I mean, when it happened, so I was like 13 when it happened to me,
Yeah.
and I just remember going into school. So many things, like you're in school and the teacher's talking and your friend's trying to whisper to you, sign, and I just couldn't hear, just fully, just straight out couldn't hear, and it went from being perfect to then suddenly like anyone
What?
sitting on my left now, I cannot hear what they're saying,
Whoa.
and it was just like I think frustrating, and then the mind sort of tries to figure out ways to compensate. So I think that for me was, you start to learn how to lip read, and you learn perhaps
Yes.
like someone's tone. Like if they finish a sentence in perhaps a higher way, then you're like, oh, that might be a question here, or
Yes.
you start looking for these cues that you never even considered before, but then suddenly you have to look at human communication a different way because you can't
Yes.
actually hear the words that are being said. And my really close friends, like, you know, my best friend throughout school, he obviously knew me very well and like knew me when it happened. But he'd sort of take the piss out of me. I always appreciated his like openness. He'd just be like, "Oh, bro, I know you did not hear what I just said then," because the natural response, especially for me when it first
So
happened,
awkward.
it was so awkward, and I would just like
Yeah.
someone would say something, and I would just like fake laugh because I felt embarrassed to ask someone like what they said again, and
Yeah.
so that was like a big thing. And then I think now it's different where I don't really. I'm not embarrassed about it anymore. Like even people I meet for the first time, I'm like, oh, I have to go on the left side of you so I can hear what you're saying
Yeah.
with my right ear. Like I
Yeah.
don't mind, but I think back then when I was younger, it was harder. Do you think with you, so you've had it since you were a young child. Were you ever at any point like embarrassed, or has it always just been something that's been in your life? Like what sort of your emotions with that?
Oh, definitely. Like I've been embarrassed about it my whole life. I don't know if I'm necessarily embarrassed about it anymore, but I used to be extremely embarrassed about it. It's been a journey for me to sort of wrap my head around it and accept it, because it's not I mean it's not, you're not like the other kids. So that makes it like really, I mean, sometimes kind of isolating, and you can't really relate to others because you have a different experience of the world. And usually hearing loss is associated with old people. And I cannot tell you how many times I've been like compared to someone's grandma. And
Yeah, yeah,
so grandparents, like old people, have gone up to me and been like, "Oh, can you help me? Like, my hearing aid has like, can you help me fix this?" Or like, "Oh, you're just like me now." And like a teenager does not want to be
no,
compared to grandma. Like that's
no,
just that no. So where it's like, I've come to accept it, and it is what it is. And actually, I will say that I've gone through this like period where I've really like gone from really not wanting to have anything to do with my hearing loss, like having my hair down. I have very thick hair, so you can't really see it at all, like if I just have my hair down. And I can sort of blend in very easily and sort of like not be noticed, to like going to the complete other end of the spectrum and just cutting all my hair off and having my cochlear implants be very visible, and be and learning sign language actually, and learning a lot about the deaf community and really like embracing it. I think now I'm like sort of learning to be somewhere in the middle. I mean, I think I know that it's not something that everybody will be able to relate to, but at the same time, and I also know that discrimination exists and that I might not want to write it on my resume, because I know that um, employers might not want to employ me if I write that on my resume. I mean, but I wish that I didn't need to have to do that
Mm.
and just be proud of it. But I also want to have a job. So it's like it's so, yeah, it's this like middle ground, and I also want to like accept the fact that I do have cochlear implants and that I am a part of the hearing world, but also be proud of my deaf side and like think that it's really cool actually that I can take them off and not hear anything and put them on and hear. But yeah, definitely it has been something that I've struggled with throughout my entire life.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
even
because
remember
yeah,
what,
go on.
sorry,
Sorry, go on.
no, I even remember being a kid, like I think I was around 4 years old. And I remember walking, like holding my dad's hand, and we were walking across this sidewalk or something. I don't know. We were just walking in the street, and I remember looking up at the clouds or like looking up at the sky, and because back then I had been told, "Oh, God sits up on a cloud."
Mm.
I remember being like, "Why would like why would God make me deaf?" Or something like that.
Mm.
Or and asking my dad, saying it out loud, like, why am I deaf? Something like that. And I remember my dad being like, um, oh well, we all have something, like your sister gets car sick once in a while. And I just remember being so disappointed in that answer. Like that was such a disappointing answer to me. Like I was just that's not the same, getting carsick and being deaf. And I knew at that point, being 4 years old, that I was very different and that it was not something that I wanted to be, I wanted to associate with.
Mm.
So it really has been something like deep seated. Um, so yeah, it certainly isn't something that you just, I don't know.
I think it's. I mean, it's really interesting, especially that you talk about having those thoughts at such a young age,
Yeah.
because I would say that one of the things that happened to me when I was like 13, when I lost my hearing
Mm,
in that ear, was that for the first time, when you're going through life, when you have your hearing, it's almost like you're just. It's like you're flowing through the river, right?
yeah.
And then as soon as you lose your hearing, it's like now you're standing on the side of the river and like observing. It's almost like, yeah, it's kind of hard to describe. It's like you become, at least for me, I became so much more in my head than before. Like before, I was part of this world, and now I'm in my head and really, um, because like I don't know, it's a weird feeling to describe, but because when one of your main stimulus is taken away, like if you imagine someone that goes blind, suddenly you are your thoughts, you're more your thoughts, and that's what I really remember feeling like, and and that
Wow.
was really difficult to get used to, like being more in my head, um, but it also made me like have a lot more thoughts about I don't know. I think it was difficult at the time because I used to like analyze things a lot more because I felt more less connected to the things around me. Like, and even the social things as well was talk about it being a debilitating factor. It is because there is if there's a group and there's a joke and you miss it, like it just completely flies by and you didn't hear it, and like you're not gonna, especially when you're younger, you don't ask people to repeat stuff, or in a group setting, you don't ask to repeat stuff because it's not what you conventionally do.
No,
So
exactly.
yeah, there's a lot of emotional sides to
Yeah.
it. With the you mentioned that you got the implant when you're about 1.5 years old. I'm curious how your parents knew you were deaf. Like that might sound like a silly question, but you know, how would you know that a child was deaf?
Yeah. Wait, first I just want to say I've never heard anyone describe what I have like felt on the inside so well. Like the fact that you see the river from the outside and you're much more in your thoughts, like
Mm,
blown away. That is that is just the best description. I've never heard anyone else describe it like that. That
mm.
is beautiful.
Oh, thank
Beautiful.
you, thank you.
Wow. I'm blown away right now. Yeah. Anyway, back to your question. So they found out that I was deaf. Um, I think my mom. Okay, so actually, it was what was it? I think I got some sort of infection in my ear, middle ear infection. I think is that what it's called?
Yeah, yeah,
Middle
yeah.
infection? Yeah, just like some regular ear infection. And I don't think my parents had thought anything of it. They were just like, "Oh, we just gotta take her to the doctor," and you know, that was back before they tested baby's hearing from birth. So I went to the hospital, and this was around when I was 8 months old. So they like they put me in this hearing screening thingy machine, and they were like blasting loud sounds into like this, like they put me in a box or something.
Mm.
That's what I've heard. They put me in this box and they blasted this loud sound, and I was just sleeping, and they were trying to like figure out why isn't she waking up,
Mm.
like why isn't she reacting to the sound. So they were like trying to fix the machine and like push different buttons, and until they realized, okay, this baby is like completely deaf.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was how they found out for real. I don't think they, I mean, I don't think they thought about it before
Mm.
I was 8 months old. Maybe they might have thought, okay, she's a really quiet child, a very observant baby. And they have told me that I was like I was like always looking out at the world, and I didn't cry a lot. I was just very like observant. And I didn't like being put on my stomach, because obviously I couldn't see if I was lying on my stomach.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, but my parents were in disbelief. Like it was really really hard for them. And I think maybe it was the same night or a couple of nights later. My dad, he took two like pan no what is it like saucepan lids, and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like smashed them together over my like little sleeping, yeah, me sleeping, and like, yeah, I didn't wake up. So
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
really like sunk in. Okay, she's really deaf.
Mm.
And yeah, and that was in the beginning of when they started to give these cochlear implant surgeries. And it was very controversial because the deaf community was not really happy about this. And
Why
yeah,
wouldn't they be happy about it?
so a lot of people in the deaf community at that time, still today, some people don't like cochlear implants in the deaf community because a lot of these people believe that it is a form of it's like you're changing yourself, and also it takes away some, as what I understand, it takes away the initiative to learn sign language. And it makes it so that um that I'm sort of being changed and put into the hearing world instead of staying deaf and being sort of proud of who I am and learning my deaf culture, deaf heritage.
I can't
Is that
help. I don't mean to laugh. I. It's so
yeah,
surprising to me that you. I
yeah,
would have never ever thought that. Like that. That's so
no,
surprising. What have
yeah.
you come across like people that like where have you experienced this, or is this like an online thing, or like where have you heard this? Because I'm really shocked that anyone would feel like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because it's usually so in the hearing world, the view is, oh, there's something wrong with you. Let's fix it. We have the medication or technology to sort of fix this problem. But I think because the deaf community is a community with sign language, a lot of sociologists actually view these people as an ethnic group of people
Mm.
because they have their own language and their own culture, own schools, own like a tiny little community. But I have come across it a little bit, not a lot, because today views have changed a little bit. It's not as much as when I was younger. My parents actually there were some people in the deaf community that called my parents Nazis for giving
Really?
me, yes, yeah. Um, yeah, because for some people it's viewed as a form of eugenics, which I mean, I can understand I can understand where they're coming from. I don't agree, but I can understand where they're coming from because it is sort of, why would you change yourself in a way? I don't know.
Hmm.
It's really, yeah,
I think it's difficult
yeah,
because in a sense, like, we were talking earlier about like all these feelings you get from, having being a bit deaf, and you might not feel like fully part of the group or
yes,
accepted and everything. So then by saying, oh, you want to be able to hear, get the implants or stuff like that, in a way it is saying, well, I don't want to be like you, I don't want to be deaf. Like,
exactly,
so I think
exactly,
maybe they felt a bit attacked by, you know, that, and also probably a bit sad that they didn't get the opportunity to get implants. Maybe if they're a bit older side, then you can't, as you
yeah,
said, you can't get implants when you reach a certain age because your brain can't. It's not used to. It can't pick up the sounds.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Maybe I don't know. I mean, I don't think they would actually say that, and I don't know. I think if you asked deaf people, older deaf people, they would probably say that they're proud of being deaf and that they wouldn't want to be hearing because they're really happy in the deaf community. But I actually haven't talked to any older deaf people about this, so I don't know. Um, I would be curious to ask, but I also feel like it's really rude to ask. I don't know. Like, would you want to have hearing if you could? I don't know. It doesn't seem like the right thing to ask. I don't know.
I get that. I
It's,
think people would be pretty open to discussing that, though. In my experience, like, if
yeah,
you can ask anyone any question as long as you're respectful, and you
yeah.
respect what they're saying, so I think you definitely be able to ask that. What were your How did your parents like deal with being called Nazis and things like that for not being able to for giving you implants in a way?
They were like, I don't. They were like, we don't want our child into that kind of a community where where I would be ostracized for having cochlear implants, which I understand that. But then at the same time, I mean, it also created this weird thing where it's like I never saw anyone who was like me, pretty much throughout my entire childhood. I did have once a year, um, we went to, I don't know if you know, Legoland. Have you heard
Yeah.
of? Yes. So there was like
Is it the one
this.
in Billund?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the original Legoland.
Yes, exactly. Yes, there was like an annual hearing conference where families with children with hearing loss, they could come together and the children could go around Legoland and the parents could like have this conference thing. That was that one time a year that I saw other children like myself, but the rest of the time I didn't. And so I was very immersed in the hearing world. And I think that was kind of lonely. And I do think that it's good for a child to see people like yourself. I often actually compare it to being adopted from another culture,
Mm.
where like if you're being adopted from, let's say, white parents from, I don't know, another culture on the other side of the world, and you don't look like your parents, and mm, some people, some adopted, I can't speak about this completely, but I know that some adopted people want to visit the country they were adopted from and to learn about the culture and to meet other people from that culture or that country and sort of be around people who look like themselves. Um, yeah, so yeah, and also when I take them off, I'm sort of completely cut off from the
Mm.
rest of my family and from people around me if I don't know sign language and if they don't speak sign language either. So, sort of my right if that makes any sense. My right to be in the family depends on me wearing cochlear implants. And so I've also criticized that, but at the same time, the deaf community criticizes some deaf people, not all deaf people. I really want to make that clear.
Yeah.
I don't want to like, make this
Yeah.
mold as if this is the entire deaf community. There are a lot of very lovely deaf people that I've met, and I'm very happy that I've like learned sign language and actually immersed myself into the deaf community.
Mm.
That aside, but there were some people in the deaf community that viewed cochlear implant as a sort of a negative thing. So it's like you can't really win. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I think, I mean, I get the adoption analogy. I think it does work. That
Yeah.
when you mentioned at that Legoland conference, like that was the one time of the year you would see other kids who
Yeah.
were similar to yourself. Um, like what was that like? Because I think your parents probably were trying to. That was good that they would go to stuff like that because it's probably them trying to understand, what that world is like, and they probably met other parents who were going
Yeah.
through similar sort of situations.
Yeah.
Um, did you ever keep any of the friends that you met there when you were younger, or did you meet up outside of that, or was that sort of you were very young and your parents it was just a once a year sort of thing?
Okay, so I don't remember. I don't think I didn't from. So okay, I actually it was supported by the commune, the municipality paid for our trip
Mm.
to Legoland, but they stopped supporting that trip when I was 9 years old because they thought that I was too well functioning. So they were just like, you know what, you can't do this. I'm like, that's so fucked up, by the way.
Yeah,
But okay, they didn't think that I deserved to meet other people like me.
yeah. Mm.
Okay, well, fair enough, or not fair enough, but yeah. So but I think I was pretty much cut off from there. I didn't keep any of the friends. We did have one. Uh, there was another family in Copenhagen where I grew up that contacted my parents because uh they had given birth to a deaf girl who was a little bit younger than me, and I would play with their older son who was my age, who wasn't deaf, but I did have a little bit of connection through that family. I haven't kept connection with that family though,
Mm.
but I do. I mean, I'm friends with them on Facebook, but that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Uh, but then when I was 12 years old, I moved to New York City, and and my teachers, they were like, oh, you're deaf, like we need to get you to this like deaf community here in New York. And I just did not want to do this because I was starting to become a teenager, and I was like, I just want to be normal, like I
Yeah.
don't want to be associated with anything that could be atypical or unnormal.
Mm.
So I was really against this, but I did go, and I just remember everybody speaking American Sign Language, and I was just like, I don't want to be here. Like I really did not like it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
with the sign language, do you have a different Danish sign language to?
Yes.
Okay, so every country has their own sign language,
Um,
or
Pretty much there are 300 sign languages in the world.
wow, okay, I did
Yeah,
not know.
it's a big misunderstanding that sign language is just one.
That's what I
Like,
imagined. Yeah,
yeah. Also, who would have made that? But anyway, it's sign language.
true, very true.
Yeah. Sign language like happened or like was created organically, just like spoken language. So it just sort of happened. And actually, this is really interesting. The most recent example of a language being created was at this deaf school. I don't know if you've heard about this case.
No.
There was this deaf school in, I think it was Nicaragua. I don't know how to pronounce the name of this country. I'm sorry.
Mm.
But yeah, anyway, there was a war in Nicaragua in the 70s, I think. Maybe in
Okay.
the 70s, maybe in the 80s. I could be wrong. But then these deaf children were just they were scattered around the country, but then they were, I don't know, somehow being put into this school together, and none of them could speak the same sign language because they had just grown up in their own households, so they had their own sort of little house sign languages. But then these deaf children actually created their own language, and the teachers didn't, or like outsiders didn't understand their language.
Wow.
That was really fascinating, actually, for linguists to see how a language is made, because that's how they, I think that's how they proved some theory. I think it was Noam Chomsky's internal grammar theory, this theory that children actually have a sense of grammar innately. I could be wrong though about this, but
Wow.
it's fascinating.
That's
It
so
just
interesting.
organically. It's just created.
That's so amazing. And the other thing with sign language that I'm quite curious about is how does it work with pacing? So, like, for example, with language, like when you're having a conversation, the aim is to communicate ideas and tell stories and things like that. Um, and I feel like there's a certain pace to conversations. How long does it take to get across ideas in sign language compared to
Okay,
normally speaking it?
that's a really good question. That's a really, really good question. How long does it take? Actually, one thing that I can say, I don't know, but I can say that sign language is sort of more compact, because spoken language is sort of like 2D string, like only one string of information can come out of my mouth at the same time.
Mm.
Of course, you can have like facial expressions and tonality and stuff, but in sign language, at least in Danish sign language, I can't speak for other sign languages, but you have sort of placement in the space, and you can say several things at once.
Okay,
If that makes
okay.
sense.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, I
it's
think so.
3D instead of 2D.
Yeah, it's like let's say there's like four quadrants, and you can almost like put things in places. Is that how?
Yes.
Yeah,
For example, okay, the most classical example is the man is walking across the bridge. That would be a sentence in
yeah.
English. But in Danish Sign Language, you wouldn't say the man is walking across the bridge. You would have to put up the bridge first before a man can walk over it. You know?
What would
Does
you
that
do?
make sense?
What would you do then? You'd
You'd
have to.
say, you would have to say bridge,
Yeah.
man is walking. Because a man can't be walking in something that you haven't placed. So you have to
Okay, I understand.
have the object before you can do the subject and the verb. So it's
Right.
like switched word order. Um, for example, you can say another thing where, um, so for example, if we were talking about a person, we can place that person over here,
Hmm.
and then I can just point to that space, and now we both know that the person I've placed in this space, that I'm talking about this person, I can just point or just be like her and talk about something else and then go back and forth. I don't know if this makes any sense.
No,
No.
that makes complete sense. Like complete sense. So
Yeah,
like you're saying, when you're describing a situation, you have to build up with the images, like the things first. Like with the bridge example, you have to say there's a bridge. You can't just say there's a man walking because otherwise it's on thin air. Or and then
exactly.
with the
Yeah,
example with the placing, you can have multiple people, maybe put one here and put one there, and then you sort of refer back to them.
exactly.
That is so fascinating to me because it's just such
Yeah,
a different way of trying to
to communicate.
communicate an idea.
Yes. Yeah. It's like it's completely different. You just have to like when I learned sign language a couple of years ago, I was just like I had to like completely restructure my brain. Like
Mm.
it's like you have to think language completely differently. And
And
I'm
what was the most complicated aspect of sign language to learn for you?
um okay, I will say though that I haven't learned sign language completely yet.
Okay,
Like
okay.
still learning. The most complicated aspect of it for me still is sometimes it's so fast and I'm like, how can you see? There it feels like there's so much implicit that I can't catch. And like it's like Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it, but it's like everything goes by so fast, and native speakers, I don't understand how they just, yeah, they just speak so fast. If they speak slower, I can like, or speak sign. If they sign slower, then I can sort of, or speak, whatever. Then I can
Yeah, yeah.
follow.
I suppose in that sense, it's the same of as learning other languages. You know,
Yeah,
like when, like, I've been trying to learn Danish, but when people speak slowly, for me, I can sort of understand, put like maybe pick out a few of the words. Like, okay, I kind of understand what's going on there. But as soon as people are talking, they're not trying to talk to me; they're trying to talk to each other. Then I'm like, I have no
yeah,
idea what you're saying, because
exactly.
obviously native speakers will just talk fast and you don't have to be explicit with the things you're saying because you already understand what things
Yeah,
mean and the subtle things there. So
exactly.
it's, yeah, very different.
Yeah, and I don't have the whole frame of reference that these people have because they're born in this culture. So I don't have any like any frame of reference. I just know how to communicate like back and forth. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of implicit stuff that I can't really access yet.
Hmm.
Um yeah, so but I'm curious. Wait, okay, can I ask you completely
Yeah,
like
of
a
course.
completely different question?
Yeah.
Because I was just reminded of this. So why? Okay, I'm sorry if I'm like completely like.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Ask me anything. It's okay.
Why was it only your left ear that was
I
affected?
imagine that was the ear that was pointed towards the sound. Um,
How
so
come none of your other family members had the like same
it's to do
experience?
with that. It was probably a 1 in a million chance of it happening, because the thing is, I talked about that sort of resonant frequency where you get a
Yeah,
massive spike in sort of amplitude. And for that to happen, as you talked about before, there's like 200,000 different frequencies of sound, right? And humans maybe can hear half of that. And then in your ear, there's only one frequency that would be the very top resonant frequency. So there was thousands of people there that day, all in the same space, a lot of them without ear protection, with all the planes flying by. But it was the angle that the sound hit my ear, and at that frequency, that just caused damage.
wow.
And it's very unlucky. Like,
That's
I do
really
acknowledge
wow.
how unlucky it is, but also, you know, I mean, linking back to how you were talking about earlier, it just becomes part of your identity. Like, I,
Yeah,
I can't imagine without it. It does, at certain
really.
points, it does make me feel vulnerable. I think, I'm very protective of my hearing now because I'm obviously concerned about it and see its fragility in a way.
Yeah,
Um, and
definitely.
also something that happens to me, which I've mentioned to you before, but I think it's important people like understand this because I've not really heard anyone else talk about it. But for me, when I get sick, and then I fly a lot, obviously, I go to Denmark to see my girlfriend, so I fly a lot. And when I get sick and I fly,
Yeah.
as you are on the ground, there's a certain pressure, and then as you fly and take off, the pressure changes, and your
Hmm.
ear naturally regulates pressure. So as it changes, your body starts to deal with that pressure and everything, and it changes. But for some reason, when I get ill, my pressure regulator just does not work in my ears. Um, so then I will go completely deaf. So there's been a lot of times where I've been sick and I've flown to see my girlfriend, and I'll arrive and I'll be completely, completely deaf and I can't hear at all. And that's
Wow.
really, really scary because, when you really rely on sound, and then when it's taken away from you, even walking about and navigating the world for me it's quite scary to do. Like,
Yeah.
it's stripped away one of the things that you
Yeah.
rely on to navigate the world. And the first time it happened, I was really scared, and I think
Yeah.
it lasted. I went. It was one of the first times I went to visit my girlfriend, and I didn't know her that well, and I
Oh,
turn up, and then I'm like, I can't hear what you're saying. I literally
no.
couldn't hear. I
No.
could hear like 10%, and I said to her, I was like, I can't hear at all now. And then over the next like 4 days, it came back until it was 100%.
Yeah.
And since I've It's happened
Well,
like maybe like 5 times now, and now I think I've kind of learned techniques for make it come back, and it will come back after like 2 hours or something. But it is quite a scary thing, and I've always been worried about losing my hearing permanently because it's a scary thing. But I think in a way, talking to you is reassuring because I think a lot of the technology has got better. The fact that
it
you
is.
were born almost fully deaf,
Yeah.
and if you were born 20 years before, you would have never got the implants, and you would never be able to like hear the way you can. So I think for me it's reassuring that the technology is getting better, and that even if I ever do fully lose my hearing, hopefully we get to a point where the technology can fix that.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly.
Do you
Like,
think like so in 30 years time, do you think your hearing will, with the technology advancements, do you think it will almost be perfect? How, well, like, when I say perfect, I mean in the sense of like what other people, how they hear sounds.
hmm, probably. I mean, with the rate of technology, like the way things are going right now, it seems like that's where it's heading. Um, it's scary though because people are talking about making a cochlear implant that's only on the inside. Some people are really excited about it because then they don't have to wear cochlear implants on the outside and have it be visible. But I think that's kind of scary. Honestly, to me, I'm like, that's a bit sad that that's what like that is what you're worried about that other people can see it. I
Mm.
don't know. I think but also not being able to turn them off, that's scary. That's really scary to me actually. So I don't know if I would want that because I really love being able to be in both worlds. If I was I think I'd feel trapped if I was only able to hear. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, and that
Yeah,
might be like completely counterintuitive to normal hearing people, but I guess that's yeah, I
I
don't
hear what
know.
you're saying. Like it gives you the flexibility of both. I think that the
Yes.
only use case I use my deaf ear for is because I'm mostly deaf in this ear, but perfect hearing in this one. So if
Mhm.
I'm in a loud place and I'm trying to sleep, I'll sleep with my pillow in the good ear.
Yeah.
So then I can't really hear on the other one, so it goes quiet. That's the only
That
use
is
case.
but that's genius. There are some serious upsides to this. I mean, other than the fact that I mean it's socially debilitating and all that. But like you can sleep anywhere.
Yeah.
Seriously, anywhere. It's genius. Um People can snore next to you, doesn't matter.
Mm,
You can just sleep through it. It's like honestly, I can't see why people wouldn't want this.
mm.
So genius. Exam situations, like for example, if like I'm in a huge like hall where everybody's taking the exam and people are like tapping their pens or whatever, I can just and I concentrate so much better. It's almost like it's like zoom and then I'm just in it.
Yeah, 100%. I have these headphones which are like fully noise cancelling, and for
Yeah.
me, like as soon as they're on, everything's quiet, and I can just—it's
Yeah.
like entering a different world of focus. It's so brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so good.
But I'm curious, you said that you become deaf if you like if you have a stuffed nose or if you have a cold
Mm.
and you fly. Why is it that it's both ears that you become deaf in though?
So this is where I perhaps should know the biology better, but I don't fully. But
Yeah.
my understanding is that I think that the your hearing needs some sort of air to flow to allow vibration, right? Like,
Yes. Right.
and then if when you're on a plane and there's like it sort of pushes this bubble, this air bubble
Mhm.
in, and then you can kind of blow your nose and it pushes out, or yawn and it pushes it out, and then you can suddenly get your hearing back. I think that when I'm ill, this bubble, it goes so far in and it creates this vacuum of space where
Mhm. Okay.
air is not allowed to pass through, which means that the vibrations of the
Yeah.
hair cells isn't happening. That's my theory of what's going on. I'm not 100% certain, but that's what I would imagine is happening.
But it would seem that I mean that you could just I mean that it would only happen in one ear or that or
But you
maybe
have
you're
the
just
air. You'd have the air pressure affecting
listening.
both sides, wouldn't you? Let me clarify. Even if I had perfect hearing, I
Yeah.
still think that when I'm ill and going on these flights would make me a bit
Right.
deaf.
Okay.
So it's nothing to do with the fact that my hearing's damaged. It's more
Right.
to do
Okay.
with the fact that the regulating process of changing pressures is not working when I am ill.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. That's
So the
yeah.
other thing I want to ask you before, like, we're coming towards the end, so I think I want to like let's talk about this finally. Was the devices used at like lectures and classrooms? Um,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
do you want to tell me a bit about that, like how those work?
Yeah, of course. So I use these microphones, and so the teacher has a microphone that they wear on their clothing. It's like a little clip, and then it just goes directly from the microphone into my hearing aids, cochlear implants. But I have a little thing that I put on it so it can sort of take the signal.
Mhm.
And then there are these like table microphones on each table, um, so that the other students, if they students, yeah, students.
Yeah,
I was just thinking, like, is it also called students if it's in a university?
it
But
is. It is.
not
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Danish. It is, right?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, anyway. The other students, if they have something to say, that I can also hear them, because actually that's the biggest problem for me, is hearing someone on the other side of the classroom, um, who speaks really quietly and just mumbles. I can never hear what they're saying. Or
Hmm.
if there's like a class discussion or something, um, then it's really nice to be able to follow along.
And then in that sense, like, let's say, can you? They'd be picking up all the sounds right from all those microphones around the room.
Mm.
So then, if someone's like having their own personal conversation on their table, can you hear what they're saying?
Well, technically yes, but it's not. That actually doesn't happen very often.
Okay, all
And
right,
I
that's
think
fair.
I have this little remote thingy that I can
Yeah.
just on it, and then it just, but that's annoying because if someone else says something, then I can't hear that.
Hmm.
But it's not really a problem, but technically yes. When I was a little bit younger, I actually didn't have microphones before I was in ninth grade, 10th grade. That was when I actually, for the first time, met other people with hearing loss and, like, actually had microphones for the first time, and it was a huge revelation for me. But after that, I used microphones in school because I didn't before that. And the microphones that I used then were a bit different than the ones I have now. The ones I have now, you just speak and then it goes directly into my cochlear implants. But the ones I had before was like an actual like microphone that you had to take up and you had to press this button so that the sound would come through.
Sort of
And
like a karaoke microphone sort of thing.
exactly, yes, like an
Yeah.
actual microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had to like pass them out every day. It was quite a hassle.
That sounds yeah, and also it sounds like if I'm being candid, it sounds like it might be a bit awkward to do.
Oh,
Was it?
definitely insanely awkward. Yes. Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
Extremely awkward. Yeah, also like if someone forgets to take it and speak into it, I'd have to like imagine there's dead silence except the student who's speaking. I would have to interrupt them and be like, "Hey, can you remember to use the microphone?" Of course I want to do that because I want to like, you know,
You want to take part and listen and hear and learn.
yes,
Yeah.
I want to speak up for myself and speak up for, yeah, speak up for myself for my accessibility and stuff like that. But it's also, it feels so rude. It's like you have to really um just say, I don't care about social norms. Like I'm just gonna interrupt this person speaking.
Hmm.
And also it feels really vulnerable to do because it's like you're the only one who actually needs this, um and you're centering the attention to yourself, and it's not necessarily like my hearing loss isn't something I've always been proud of, so it's really, and it's not necessarily the most like cool thing, you know I don't know. So
There's a
yeah,
lot of
it's
like conflicting emotions going on there.
definitely, yeah, yeah, a lot
That's
of
yeah.
conflicting emotions. Yeah.
I think like yeah, I mean, to be honest, when I met, I was just like really fascinated, and I thought it was quite cool. Just the main, especially the technology as well, because it just blew
Yeah.
my mind how you were born fully deaf, and then you can have an implant that
Mm,
brings you back hearing, and we spent the day like we could talk and have conversations, and it
yeah.
was natural,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there were a lot of points, because we were my girlfriend as well. I'm sure that there was a lot of points you probably didn't hear what was said the same way I couldn't hear what was being said. But
Yeah.
like, I think with that as well, you know, for me, I used to care a lot more that I couldn't. I used to
Mhm.
care that I couldn't hear what was being said. Now, I'm just not really that bothered. Like, if I don't hear it, it's not the end of the world. I just don't hear it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm not that fussed about it. Uh, I'm sure people around me probably get a bit frustrated with me saying what did you say all the time, but that's just part of it, isn't it?
Wait, can I ask you, do you know anyone else at your age who has a hearing loss in any
No, I
way?
think you're the first person I've ever talked to. Well, that's
Seriously?
met. Yeah, yeah. There's not been
Wow.
anyone else that I talked to about
Wow.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Eh, how is that? Like,
I mean, for me, I mean, going back to, I think it was difficult when it first happened when I was younger, and I feel
yeah.
like similar to you, where you go through a lot of stages of how you feel about it. I think that I've been through a lot of stages, and now I'm just in that like acceptance, like that's just part of me stage.
That's good.
Um, and then the only fear comes, when I mention like going on flights and stuff, and I try and take care of it.
Mm.
And also, like, if I don't like going to music concerts or like festivals and like that because I'm worried about like damaging my hearing. So I never do stuff like that. And then
That's
um, if I do go to music stuff with my friends, like I'll always have like plugs,
good.
like defenders, or whatever, because I'm just very conscious of it.
Hmm.
But yeah, apart from that, it's all okay.
Wow. You do know that, I mean, the technology is there and it's always evolving. So, I mean, the times are with you if you do want to go that route.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think it's not bad enough that I would feel
Yeah.
like I'd have to get it.
Yeah.
I think that if it ever deteriorated to a point where I fully lost hearing in that ear,
Yeah.
then I probably would get it because you know hearing stuff and like the surround is so much better than when it's just one. Like it's just very different. So yeah, I probably would if that was ever the case. But at the moment, I think um,
I'm
yeah,
curious, like, how is it with like in NHS? How would you get it for free, or how would you have to pay for
that's a good
if
question.
you
I
want to get
mean, when I was younger, like when that first happened, I went to the doctors about it. They did a similar test to you, where they put the headphones on and then they play varying volumes of sound at
Yeah.
different frequencies, and then they sort of can draw this picture of where you can hear and what you can't hear.
Hmm.
And for me, I think I can't really hear the high frequencies that well, and
Okay.
also the volume of them is quite low. Um, so I think that's sort of the place I fit into. But yeah, once again, I think it's all right for me. Like I'm not that bothered about it. I think it you know fits quite well. I think so for you. Like we are coming towards the end. So I think finally, I was just going to say, what does the next few years look like for you? You're at uni at the moment, and what do you think the next few years looks like for you?
Oh, that's really hard to say. Um, as what do you mean, like, as in, like, what, as in, like, what my future plans are, or in terms of hearing, or in terms of what?
I suppose you could answer it from the perspective of hearing. I think that would go full circle. I suppose. Do you think
Okay.
um, do you think that you're going to look at getting the technology improved for yourself in the future, or at the moment are you happy with how it is?
Well, I mean, I think I don't know if there's much I personally can do. I mean, maybe I could get into technology, and I don't know. I don't think that's the path I want to go. But it depends. I think there's okay, so actually I've gotten the newest cochlear implant of the brand that I have, which is the N8, I think. The Nucleus 8. And they have Bluetooth connection to my phone. And that is, I mean, okay, so that is actually really distracting for me because I feel like it makes me more addicted to my phone
Wait,
because,
so you'll be like, just chilling, and then it will pop up as like, the notification sounds. You'll get that in your ear.
yeah, if someone calls me, I can hear it. Other people can't hear it.
No, I
But
wouldn't be
like,
able to cope with that. That would be, yeah, that would be annoying for me as well. I
yeah,
agree.
but so I can hear much better. Like I've never heard as well as I do now. Like
Yeah.
it my hearing is really good compared to earlier. Like I would have headaches all the time. So I'm really happy about the way technology is going, but it's also really scary that I'm really addicted to my phone because so when I'm scrolling or whatever, I can just or if I want to hear music or podcasts, it just goes directly into my head basically.
Hmm.
Um so I don't have to use any sort of like headphones or anything. I don't have to buy AirPods. That's a plus.
Yeah.
And I couldn't use them anyway. So, but before I had to use these like special made ear plug thingies that would always break, and they were really bad quality, but that was what I had. Um, Whereas now it's like, and also the way I like adjust the sound is also on my phone. So like everything is like I'm becoming much more attached to my phone, and I don't like that. I
Yeah.
honestly really don't like that because I really don't want to be this addicted.
No. I suppose
So
one thing you could do, which I've like done on my phone because I feel the same way, is you can turn off notifications for like a lot of things. You can choose which apps can send you notifications.
yeah,
So I've just turned off loads of notifications to apps that like I just don't want to see. Like,
yeah,
because naturally, like you're just there and your phone, it lights up with a message. And you're like, oh, what is it? And 99% of the time, it's just the most irrelevant, useless information ever.
exactly.
Don't need it.
Yeah.
So I completely get what you're saying. But yeah, thank you, Sarah, for coming on today. I've
All
actually
right.
really enjoyed the conversation. It's been brilliant.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for letting me be on here. Thank you very much
It's
for
been
that.
great. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day, and thank you.
Thank you. You too. You too.